The Sandown Clown. The noise called to them, like a warped ambulance siren echoing across the marsh. On a Tuesday in May 1973, a girl named Faye and her friend were walking through a park in the town of Sandown on the Isle of Wight when they heard the sound. Curious, they tracked it across a golf course to a narrow wooden bridge over a small lake. As they approached, a blue-gloved hand emerged from the water under the bridge, clutching a book. The figure that followed looked nothing short of otherworldly. Towering at nearly 7 feet, with a neckless head perched directly onto his shoulders, the figure that would later be dubbed the Sandown Clown wore a patchwork of odd colors: a yellow pointed hat, a green tunic with a red collar, and a white face bearing triangular eyes, a square nose, and fixed yellow lips. Antenna-like slats jutted from his sleeves, and he had only 3 fingers on each hand. Startled but intrigued, the children watched him drop his book into the stream, clumsily splashing to retrieve it. Instead of fleeing, Faye and her friend watched as he hopped toward a metallic hut nearby, moving with exaggerated high-knee steps. Soon after, he re-emerged, holding a black microphone with a white cord. Another siren blared, louder and sharper, prompting Faye's friend to sprint back in fear. Then, just as suddenly, the siren cut off. Through the microphone, the clown spoke, as if he were right beside them. "Hello. Are you still there?" Despite the somewhat frightening situation, the children edged closer, encouraged by the clown's soft, friendly voice. When they were close enough, the figure scribbled in a notebook and held it out to them. "Hello, and I am all colors. Sam," it read, in a scrawl that was both playful and confusing. Faye read it aloud, and Sam introduced himself, though not quite answering when asked if he was human. Instead, he ambiguously replied, quote, "Well, not really, but I am in an odd sort of way." The children's strange host led them inside his hut, which had 2 levels. The lower level was decorated with blue-green wallpaper covered in dials and had simple wooden furniture, along with an electric heater. The upper level, by contrast, had metallic flooring and less headroom. Here, Sam demonstrated how he ate by performing a bizarre trick with a berry. He placed it in his ear, jerked his head, and made it appear in his eye before moving it to his mouth. The encounter lasted about half an hour before the children, mystified, left the hut and hurried across the golf course, telling the first passerby they encountered about their sighting of what they called a ghost. Unconvinced, the man brushed them off, yet their story would later spark curiosity. Faye's father, skeptical at first, reported it to the British UFO Research Association, spurred by his own eerie experiences of strange lights over the marshland just 3 years prior. Was Sam a ghost, an alien, or just an eccentric prankster? Decades later, the Sandown Clown remains one of the Isle of Wight's most peculiar mysteries. The Smiling Man. On a chilly November evening in 1966, Woodrow Derenberger, a sewing machine salesman from Mineral Wells, West Virginia, found himself on an isolated stretch of highway, adjusting cargo in the back of his truck. The night was cold, and the road was quiet. Heading home, he didn't expect to encounter anything more than headlights, until one particular set of lights slowed and hovered before him. Derenberger initially thought it was a patrol car, but as he got closer, he saw it was no car at all, but a strange vehicle shaped like a kerosene lamp, glowing in the dark. As he watched, a door slid open, and a figure emerged. A man, yet not quite like any other. His face was deeply tanned, his hair combed back in a neat, dark wave. But what struck Derenberger most was the man's grin, wide and frozen, paired with his odd stance, arms folded, hands tucked under his armpits. The man did not speak aloud. Instead, he transmitted his words directly into Derenberger's mind, calm yet chilling. "Why are you frightened?" the man asked. "You mean you no harm." Derenberger, startled and confused, listened as the figure introduced himself as Indrid Cold. He strangely told Derenberger that he came from a place that was less powerful than the United States. Before departing, Cold assured Derenberger that this would not be their last meeting, and encouraged him to report the meeting to authorities. By the following day, news of the encounter exploded across West Virginia. On live television, Derenberger recounted every detail, facing a panel of local officials, reporters, and even military personnel. Despite the skepticism, his story drew attention. Soon, others came forward, claiming to have seen a similar grinning figure or mysterious lights along the same road. Some swore they'd glimpsed Derenberger's truck stopped on the highway with a man standing beside it, just as he had described. Over the next few months, Derenberger reported more visits from Indrid Cold, claiming he was now being visited not only by Cold, but by others from Cold's supposed home planet, Lanalos. As time passed, Derenberger said he'd been transported there, where he saw a world of strange beings and foreign landscapes. In these accounts, his initial fear had given way to fascination. Yet not everyone welcomed his story. The media attention weighed on Derenberger's life, costing him friends and his job. His family, too, became embroiled in the story, facing ridicule from neighbors and the press. Harassing phone calls were frequent, and in time, Derenberger grew isolated. His health suffered, and his wife eventually left him. Despite it all, he never recanted his account of Indrid Cold. On foggy autumn nights, the eerie notion of a grinning man still sends chills through anyone driving those desolate West Virginia roads, leaving us to wonder, who or what did Derenberger truly encounter? The Mad Gasser. September nights in Mattoon, Illinois are usually quiet. But in 1944, as World War II raged overseas, Mattoon's residents began locking their doors and windows, fearing an unknown figure who seemed to slip through the shadows, armed with an invisible weapon. A sweet odor was the only trace of the Mad Gasser's attacks, leaving victims stunned, paralyzed, and panicked. It began on August 31st with Urban Rafe, a sheet metal worker whose brother had recently fallen in battle. Rafe awoke in the early hours to a foul, sweet smell drifting through his open window. Soon he fell ill, his body too weak to move, and he vomited. His wife tried to get up, but her legs wouldn't carry her. They were sure they'd been poisoned, but the police found no evidence. Just a day later, another resident, Aline Kearney, reported a similar attack. Home with her children and sister, Kearney noticed the same sweet smell. Moments later, her legs went numb, and she called out for help. Her sister rushed to the window, just in time to catch a glimpse of a shadow slipping away. Kearney's husband returned to find a stranger lurking near their house, a tall figure dressed in dark clothing and a skull cap. As fear gripped the town, the stories piled up. Residents claimed they'd been gassed in their own homes, describing symptoms of nausea, temporary paralysis, and burning throats. Mattoon's Journal-Gazette stoked the fear, dubbing the prowler the mad anesthetist and calling out the police for their inaction. The attacks fueled widespread terror. Locals armed themselves, vigilante groups patrolled the streets, and locked windows became the rule. Chief of Police C.E. Cole, frustrated by the community's escalating panic, blamed industrial fumes. He suggested the nearby Atlas Imperial diesel engine plant was releasing carbon tetrachloride, a chemical with a sweet odor. Atlas Imperial quickly countered, saying its workers were symptom-free and its processes were safe. As the local police dismissed reports as hallucinations, the panic began to subside. Yet some believe the Mad Gasser was all too real. Decades later, a local teacher, Scott Maruna, offered an alternate theory. In his view, the culprit was a Mattoon resident named Farley Llewellyn, an isolated, eccentric figure known for chemical experiments that once rocked his neighborhood with an explosion. Maruna speculated that Llewellyn, rejected by his community, exacted his revenge through a homemade toxic gas, a possibility that no police investigation ever fully explored. To this day, the mad gasser of Mattoon remains a mystery. Was it a case of mass hysteria heightened by wartime anxieties? Or did a troubled chemist slip undetected through the streets, preying on his neighbors? The truth is as elusive as the shadow that haunted Mattoon's streets that September. The Bunny Man. A quiet midnight road, a jarring flash of movement, and a figure cloaked in white. This is how the bizarre legend of Virginia's Bunny Man begins. The story's origins are surprisingly tangible. On October 19th, 1970, U.S. Air Force Academy cadet Robert Bennett and his fiancée parked their car along a stretch of Guinea Road in Burke, Virginia, near Bennett's uncle's house. Suddenly, as the couple sat with the engine running, the silence shattered and their car window exploded into a shower of glass fragments. Outside, a man stood, dressed in what Bennett later described as a white suit with long bunny ears. The stranger yelled, accusing them of trespassing, before tossing a chilling keepsake on the floorboard, a hatchet. Just 10 days later, another sighting would add to the mystery. Security guard Paul Phillips encountered a similarly dressed man, this time wielding an axe, while patrolling a home construction site nearby. When Phillips approached, the figure began hacking at a porch post, warning, quote, "If you come any closer, I'll chop off your head." Phillips quickly retreated, later detailing the encounter to the local press. Within weeks, Fairfax County Police had received over 50 reports of Bunny Man sightings. Yet, despite the spike in reported incidents, no one was able to identify the man. Police found no leads to explain the attacker's identity or his strange costume. By the end of the year, authorities deemed the case inactive. As official interest faded, the public's obsession with the story only grew. Rumors spread, layering the Bunny Man with new, grisly details. A story began circulating about a deranged asylum escapee named Douglas Griffin, who supposedly hung the bodies of his victims from the Colchester Overpass, now known as Bunny Man Bridge. In one version, a group of teens was attacked beneath the bridge on Halloween. Over time, the lore diverged even further from reality, painting the Bunny Man as a spirit that appears each Halloween to claim new victims. The true identity of the Bunny Man remains a mystery, but historian Brian Conley has pieced together clues that hint at possible motivations. After extensive research, Conley suggests the Bunny Man may have been a local man deeply upset by rapid suburban development of previously untouched land in Fairfax County. According to Conley, the man's goal was to stop the construction of new homes in the area. In the decades since, the truth and legend of the Bunny Man have become nearly indistinguishable. There were no asylum breakouts, no real murders, and yet the image of an axe-wielding figure in a bunny suit haunts Fairfax. As Conley noted, quote, "If there was ever a story ripe to grow and get a little bit strange, it's the Bunny Man." The Watertown Faces. The haunting photo, grainy yet unmistakable, shows two faces staring from the foamy waves beside the SS Watertown. Taken in the winter of 1924, this chilling image, believed to capture the ghostly faces of sailors James Courtney and Michael Meehan, has puzzled historians for nearly a century. But what led to this eerie snapshot, and could it truly be a glimpse of the afterlife? The story of the photograph begins with tragedy aboard the SS Watertown, an oil tanker navigating the Pacific near the Panama Canal in late 1924. As part of their duties, sailors Courtney and Meehan descended into a confined cofferdam to clean the tanks, a space notorious for trapping noxious fumes. Unbeknownst to them, a gas jet had opened, silently filling the chamber with toxic air. Both men succumbed swiftly, unable to call for help. Their deaths shook the crew. The following day, a traditional sea burial was held, and the bodies of Courtney and Meehan were released to the depths. But as the SS Watertown continued its journey, the crew noticed something strange in the waves. At dusk, several sailors claimed they saw the faces of their fallen crewmates, pale and ghostly, bobbing alongside the ship. These apparitions appeared consistently, sometimes lingering for 10 seconds before dissolving into the ocean's foam. The sightings became so frequent that even the skeptical captain, Keith Tracy, began to question the inexplicable events. When the Watertown arrived in New Orleans, Captain Tracy reported the sightings to his employer, J.S. Patton, who suggested photographing the eerie phenomenon. Days later, when the faces appeared yet again, a sailor rushed to retrieve his camera. The resulting photograph, later developed under Captain Tracy's supervision, showed the spectral faces of Courtney and Meehan in unmistakable clarity. News of the photo and its accompanying ghost story quickly spread. The image was prominently displayed in the offices of City Services Oil Company, where it drew both intrigue and fear in equal measure. The famed Burns Detective Agency examined the photograph and, remarkably, declared no tampering, a mystery without a rational cause. Even the strongest skeptic had to wonder, were these merely illusions of the sea's chaos, or evidence of restless spirits following their final voyage? However, in 2008, after studying archived newspapers and company records, researcher Hereward Carrington identified signs of photographic manipulation that aligned with early 20th century editing techniques. It seemed that the faces, though convincing, might have been touched up. We're left to wonder, were these faces a message, a farewell, or just a coincidence shaped by eager minds? As the waves swallowed the oil tanker's wake, the truth remains lost at sea, as ephemeral as the specters once seen by the crew. Do you think any of these shadowy figures truly walked beyond the boundaries of imagination? Let me know in the comments. As always, thank you for watching Dark 5. Like and subscribe to continue exploring the greatest mysteries of this world and beyond.